Welcome back to the fifth set of ideas, the fifth set of exchanges on the exploration that the human mind is doing in its research hypothesis to seek a right methodology. We've tried to find out what the human mind has done till now that social pain has been created in society. For this, we are using the Sehna-Vavtu approach as the exploratory journey of the mind continues by asking certain questions. Can there be research ethics without ethics? Can there be research without search? Can there be research methodology without a method? And what is the right method? Find the root of the problem before you start. That is the method that we feel is right. We discovered in our last interaction that everything seems to be right in education. Yet the OECD, the World Economic Forum and Iron Hill's report find something lacking. The processes are all correct, yet the result is not coming. Can such a thing happen with you and your data while you are doing your PhD research? That everything seems okay, but the results are not tallying. Why is 2 plus 2 not adding up to 4? Have you ever wondered? In human psychology, there is a concept called gestalt, where you see the entire pattern or configuration. For example, we know that there are 7 triangles which are possible. Such triangles are present in crystalline shapes. Suppose in a crystalline shape, all the 7 triangles are present, but would you be able to see all of them together in one on the first instance? Maybe not. In life, sometimes you have done everything right, yet all the results seems to be wrong. What to do at such a time? Can we see the whole as being greater than just a perceived sum of individual parts? Gestalt, for example, does not view consciousness as being capable of being broken up into atomistic view. That it can be broken up into commonly accepted basic elements. It is, they say, something more. Does wisdom seek a spirit behind perceived reality while doing processes without worry of results? Wholeness of spirit fulfills itself slowly, just as when you are seeing and searching for 7 triangles in a crystalline shape, they may be obvious slowly. Can we apply this idea? Can we see if the spirit of ethics in education got slightly diverted and took a different route within its processes, and therefore instead of reaching the final destination of progress without social pain, it reached a destination of progress with social pain? What if the data is giving confusing results in your PhD research? What if the evidence is inconclusive? What if at a perfunctory level or at the first glance it seems that half the evidence may be saying that the hypothesis is false and only half is saying that it is true? Yet you have an inner conviction. Do you follow the inner conviction? Is it scientific to follow an inner conviction? Einstein had an inner conviction that God doesn't play dice. So we can say that there is a scientific basis for following the inner conviction, the inner belief. So now let us go back to our example. The evidence of all documentation of concept and design of education shows a strong negation of our hypothesis that just by adding values to education we should be able to remove social pain. Yet the findings of OECD, WEF, Iron Hill, etc. and the obvious reality are different, that social pain is present in society despite values being added to education. The curriculum is giving evidence that ethics is the very basis of its design, yet the conclusions are showing that it is not being applied. Ethics are not being applied. So how will you proceed? Which technique or instrument will you use? What to rely upon? What path to take? The inward path or the outward path? How will you search within for a way outwards? which is the most reliable instrument that will help you. It may not be found in books. The spirit of research ethics should always help you, for it should be designed so that the intentions behind all processes, the spirit of methodologies, etc., are assimilated within. The core of a research ethics course will be its spirit, which will also be the essence of its curriculum. The core of research ethics lies in its application, especially when problems occur in research. When a problem is unsurmountable, the spirit should never get defeated. We discovered in the last session that it is not the problem that swings like a pendulum from being unsolvable to becoming easy to solve. It is the human mind which swings. Hence, the management and the use of the mind is important for ethics and research ethics both. Its invisible nature is ever present. What curriculum can guide it in an ever-changing world? What is the set of tools or ideas or spirit that it needs? We found that having a stable mind is the first essential. It helps following ethics in life and also in using research ethics, because challenges have a strange habit. They come easily and they come fast when they have to come. How does the mind stick to its commitment to truth and righteous conduct is the core of ethics and therefore research ethics. Because research ethics must seek the truth righteously. Righteous conduct lies in searching where and how you have strayed in your research and how that has impacted the results, because it is the mind which strays and loses focus. Has our research methodology strayed in our search for a research ethics curriculum? Where could we have gone wrong? The data from Hill, OECD, WEF, three sources seem to be agreeing. The spirit of using a time horizon dimension of Saunders' technique is being met. The data collection methods of OECD, WEF, etc., if investigated, are likely to find such authoritative sources using reliable methods. Their research may have used a deductive approach, but it does appeal to our inductive reasoning. So none of the onion rings seem to be violated. None of Saunders' onion rings are being violated. This leaves the first layer of philosophy open for investigation. If the results are not matching the data, the first level, the end result of the research, then all other things in the onion rings are matching. So what is the last thing that we have not explored, which is the philosophy, the first layer of philosophy? So let's start with that. What is philosophy? Let's know that first. Cambridge Dictionary defines it as, and I quote, the use of reason in understanding such things as the nature of the real world and existence, the use and limits of knowledge, and the principles of moral judgment, unquote. All of these concepts depend on only one instrument, the human mind, which is not material. It does not deal with material things, because the things it deals in are thoughts, intentions, and ideas. The spirit behind processes. All these things develop the spirit behind the processes which have been laid down in the education curriculum. Were the processes in education curriculum correct? And was the spirit missing? Because the spirit leads to a human emotion. And when we see the results that social pain is created, what is the common human emotion that arises? When things are not working, either in life, at work, in research, a common experience of emotion is there. And this experience may come to you during your research. And this experience is frustration. What is frustration? The Oxford Dictionary defines it as the prevention of progress, success, or fulfillment of something. What does this imply? That the mind had an expectation that is not getting fulfilled. So what are we finding here again? An expectation fulfillment gap. The very gap we see that society had from education, because society expected progress without social pain from education. And what did it get? Progress with social pain. So there is an expectation fulfillment gap. Even though ethics is integrated in the processes of education curriculum. Frustration is one part of the mind fighting with itself. This implies that the mind can have two roles. Can one part of the mind perform the role of observing itself instead of fighting with itself? Can it look at its hidden motivations, temptations, and our reactions to those temptations and motivations? Can we use the mind to find out how the spirit behind processes in education curriculum got diluted over time? Will that guide not only our curriculum design but also educate us on future pitfalls so that our research ethics curriculum does not suffer the fate of the noble ideas enshrined in the processes today? All ideas in the processes of education, which include ethics, are very noble. They are enshrined. Why are they not working? We want to avoid such a pitfall when we create our research curriculum. The human mind is the instrument for research. If things go wrong in your thesis data, examine the mind's journey. So we examine it in education ideas. Our ab initio approach starts with the mind. We start by finding its own faults, especially when it fights with itself, because they say that a bad workman fights with his tools. So how to best utilize available tools? To utilize a tool, you should first know its full potential. Discover its potential. A sharp knife works best, not a sharp tongue. So that's the tool which need not be sharp. Therefore, ancient wisdom says, Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat. Speak the truth, but always speak it softly, sweetly. It should not hurt anybody. Therefore, how to use each tool of the mind in what circumstance is an aspect which may be ignored in many approaches to education, but it is critical in our approach. This realization is the Sehna Bhavtu approach, which is based on an appreciation of tools of research and a unity with their full potential after discovering the potential. This is to ensure their appropriate use. So what does the mind do? Like the spider, the mind spreads its webs, its thoughts. So if we have to solve the problem, we have to retrace, swallow the thoughts back, retrace the steps when you are in difficulty, just like the spider swallows its web back to gain strength. Let the web go back to zero, the zero mind, the ab initio, our very first lecture. So how has the mind traveled its journey in the first 4 sessions? Let us see how we are retracing the web of the mind back in our journey. If your data is not matching the obvious expectations, this is how you should retrace the mind steps. The first session pointed out that it is the interaction of the mind with matter that enables a perception of the world. How we perceive the world determines how we will react to it. The same applies to the reason why PhD was created. Society wants to see the different perception, the different way of seeing the same thing that they are already seeing currently. They want to know your way of seeing it. Your perception should be such that its application should help everybody and contribute to well-being. Evidence currently shows that the application of ideas is leading to social pain. Should your idea and its application be oriented to meet the current need of society? What did the second and third set of interactions do? Apart from many concepts that they listed, they traveled with the mind of the researcher. This path was that of information gathering. Gathering such information helped us with a couple of things. It told us what the world is thinking about, what it needs. Next, it told us why does the world want this new focus on removing social pain. We gathered information about what caused the problem, why the world needs what it needs. Does this help the mind decide what to do? After information gathering, there is a function of information processing. How did we process the information? How are we processing it? What did our fourth set of interactions do? It brought back the focus on the human mind, because it's the human mind which processes the information also. So it shows that the human mind is fluctuating by nature. So we should be aware of this when we are processing information. It showed that the steadiness of the mind is useful. A steady mind leads to a good study of the subject. A steady mind is always strongly focused on the goal and is not moved easily by any adversity, however overpowering it may seem. Research methodology is a process according to textbooks, though each may give a slightly different steps to it and different focus, etc. But this steady mind uses research methodology in the spirit behind the processes. It lives in the spirit of the goal it has to achieve. We showed in our first interaction how Einstein continued to live in the spirit even as Bohr countered him with superior logic. His spirit remained unaffected by adversity till the very end. So this is a scientific approach. What do we plan to do further in the next sessions? From the fluctuating mind, we seek to bring the mind to a steady state equilibrium. Bringing the mind to a steady state is a process of living in the spirit. It cannot happen if the spirit is not willing. That is why we say that the desire for inner search or search is the seed of research. An equilibrium in the mind overarches success, failure, fame, wealth, power or poverty. A good seed brings a good harvest. It creates well-being, not just prosperity. The mind becomes steady after it knows its journey and where it has faltered earlier. We are tracing the journey of human thought. How will the mind travel from prosperity, that is fame, power, wealth, glory, to well-being, which is equilibrium, steady state, and is the goal of our proposed research ethics curriculum? Until each individual's mind travels this journey to reach the destination, can society be in equilibrium? Until each and every component of the car has perfect quality and is working perfectly, can the car operate perfectly? Society is nothing but a collection of various, what you can call, like there are various components of the car. Even if one component is not working, like they say one bad apple can spoil. So can society be in equilibrium? Therefore, education achieves the macro goal of equilibrium through influencing each student at the micro level through the way each of them researches ethics within themselves. Until we are able to help students research ethics within themselves so that ethics emerges in their actions, the overall goal of achieving equilibrium or steady state or well-being cannot be achieved. How to empower education to help each individual reach equilibrium or inner peace? Will we travel from a steady state to fullness of the mind or mindfulness? That is the question. How do we proceed further, therefore, starting from this session? As the human mind is not material, it is not something that you can hold in your hand or you can see with your eyes. The spirit of search and research is also not material. It is not something that you can hold in your hand or see. Therefore, the mind is the best instrument to search and research this spirit, find it, incorporate it in the curriculum, and then see how it can be applied. Help students bring it out from within themselves, this spirit, and apply it in life. Let us then look at the tasks we had given ourselves in our last interaction. Let us focus on the spirit behind what we seek as we address these tasks. So what are the tasks? The second task was, what is the nature of problems that led to the need for our current hypothesis? Why, despite spread of education, social pain was created? This will reveal the gaps in the fulfillment of the earlier hypothesis. This was our second task. Our third task was, what are the causes of this gap? What are the causes that led to the goal of well-being not being fulfilled? So what could have caused this expectation fulfillment gap? Till now we have defined the research hypothesis for the research curriculum. Together we will create this curriculum, imparting which will prevent social pain. But we need to validate it. So how will we validate it? And what will be the most effective way of validating it? We will study the impact of these ideas on its application in academic courses in two streams. So we are identifying two streams. The first stream is a set of ideas that enable progress, which is catalyzed by the subjects of what we call mathematics and what we call sciences. And the other validation we'll do on ideas that plan for progress, which are catalyzed by subjects we call economics and management. So this is how we are planning to validate. How have you proceeded in your PhD research? Let's pause and ask yourself this question. Have you taken similar steps? How will you validate your hypothesis? You may learn from the way we are working as we explore hypothesis formation and its validation, while we will learn from your question in this Sehnavatu approach. So what do we say? What is the way we start with in this approach? We start by saying that always explore all dimensions of your hypothesis fully once again. So let us explore another dimension of our research hypothesis to see if we have ignored something. Our research hypothesis wants to minimize social pain. But have we defined social pain? Have we understood its dimensions fully? What are the dimensions of social pain? They are obviously not found in macro quantitative data of GDP and economic indicators, because over the last 150 years, all economic indicators show growth. However, growth has not come with social equity. Even that is well recorded by data. And we want to go beyond data. Are there any other dimensions of social pain? What is the spirit our research ethics curriculum needs to create within students to alleviate these dimensions? How to fit it into a process, a language, a methodology which will be incorporated and assimilated in the spirit of students learning and working. So let us look at what has been quantified. The data on social inequality has been quantified very well. The 2018 World Inequality Report was published. It showed that the bottom 50% of the world's population could only capture 12% of the total growth, and the top 1% captured 27% of the growth. So if this be the state of affairs, then the challenge for curriculum design is which values will develop human character so that this does not happen. Education should guide society to meet social challenges. So there are four social challenges today. What are they? The first is the obvious COVID-19 challenge. The second is the fear of a recession due to decrease in demand. The third is a threat from technology to employment. And the fourth is mental health. Enough has been discussed, written in social media and about COVID-19 and recession. And those who want to know more about recession can read my book, How to Prevent Recession. So we will not look at that in this interaction. Instead, we will look at the other issues. So what is the threat from technology? There's a serious threat that technology is going to make human beings redundant for work. They will not be needed because anything that a human being can do with his hands can be done faster, better by a machine. So we are not going to need to work. So what is the solution? Some feel that a universal basic income is our future because humans will be redundant. Is this vision for Industry 4.0 healthy for society? Is there an alternate view to it? The chairman of Tata Group, who headed their global software major, in his book Digital Nation, envisions digital ideas which can create both employment and economic growth in India. If such a vision is possible for India, can other CEOs make it for their countries too? But is there need for such a vision? The UK Health Foundation finds that not only is a job necessary for human health, but a good job is a must, because a good job makes you fulfill what you really are. It brings out your creativity, it brings out your skills, it expands your vision, your horizon, it gives you deep satisfaction, which is necessary for mental health. So it also gives a feeling of security and safety. So with this artificial intelligence and all this coming in, many companies are using what we call a time and motion study mindset of Taylor, which is 100 years, 150 years ago, and they are adding it to artificial intelligence to create unrealistic targets for employees. Some companies create a 24-hour connectivity of the employee with his work. Others are using artificial intelligence to push the workforce beyond the healthy limits of the mind and the body. And all this leads to one thing: stress. That is how the global well-being agenda developed. Therefore, are we facing two alternatives? That if we create employment, we will create mass stress, else we will create mass unemployment. So this mass stress versus mass unemployment is not a good future that education is helping create. And not only that, Society 4.0 is now worrying about the impact of the digital age, not only on the current workforce but also on our future workforce of children. The Royal College of Psychiatrists in UK in January 2020 called for a tax on technology companies to fund and support research on the harmful effect of social media on children and teenagers. This mass stress, mass unemployment alternatives are sad. So we need to, which are the ideas which can reshape our future? The OECD, the World Economic Forum, and many other organizations are seriously working on ideas that are likely to shape the future of the world of Industry 4.0. The OECD's Directorate of Education and Skills helps individuals and societies and nations identify, develop knowledge and skills that will drive better lives and better jobs, generate prosperity, and promote social inclusion. So, what should a curriculum design of research ethics do to fulfill OECD's commitment that it wants to educate students for a better future rather than look at the past, the alternatives that the past has generated of mass stress and mass unemployment? In this context, what is the challenge or epidemic apart from COVID-19 and a recession? A workshop by the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, Medicine had a keynote address by Professor Neil Halfon. the director at the UCLA, the University of California. He's also a professor at its School of Medicine. He said in his keynote that mental, behavioral, and development problems are at epidemic levels among children in the United States of America. Nearly 3/4 of the cumulative prevalence of mental health problems have their onset before the age of 25, which are the key education years in which all those ideas of ethics which are in the foundations of buildings which and schools which have created foundation of the curriculum created, when that curriculum is being taught, students are still undergoing serious mental health problems. Professor Twang of San Diego State University writes in the February 2020 issue of Physicians Weekly, and I'm quoting, "The epidemic is all too real," unquote. In fact, mental health issues among teens and young adults is nothing short of staggering. From 2009 to 2017, major depression among 20 to 21-year-olds has more than doubled from 7% to 15%. Among 16 to 17-year-olds, it rose by 69%. From 2008 to 2017, among 18 to 25-year-olds, serious psychological distress jumped by 71%. Twice as many 22 to 23-year-olds attempted suicide in 2017 versus 2008. 55% more had suicidal thoughts. By 2017, 1 of 5 12 to 17-year-old girls had experienced major depression in the previous year. It seems that the mind is the biggest challenge. How to change the journey of the mind from going towards depression to proceeding towards well-being. First of all, how can you create well-being when the mind itself is not in well-being, is not experiencing well-being? And if well-being comes from values and ethics, then all that is being taught during these years about values, ethics in the curriculum design, in the foundation stones of the schools and colleges that are there, has it been assimilated? If it had been assimilated within, it should have created well-being within the student. Because as we said, if each component of the car is not perfect, the car cannot work perfectly. So if well-being has not been assimilated, and well-being should lead to a peaceful mind, not a depressive mind. So if peace has not been achieved in the human mind, despite ethics being integrated in the curriculum, then what is missing? Are we wrong in designing our lectures focused mainly on the human mind? As you see, in the lectures, we examine the mind, we explore the mind and see how to use it. That is the research methodology we use to research its constructive use and design a research ethics curriculum using it. As we see, the crisis is till the age 25. This is the challenge facing education, because these are the education years. How can education respond to this challenge of what is happening to people, to young minds who are exposed to it? The challenge today is not of prosperity. It is in the mind. Using the words of ancient wisdom, the challenge is not in the outer world, it is in the inner world. What does education do? Education currently teaches us how to use the factors of production. It then teaches us how to create efficiency and increase investment. All this is very useful. It can even help us innovate and create value, financial value. These are all but stages of development. Professor Michael Porter was asked by the US President to find out what makes America the most competitive country in the world. he did extensive research and wrote a book, Competitive Advantage of Nations. And he found the stages of competitive development, from factor-driven economy, which has low-cost inputs, to investment-driven economy, where productivity is the focus, to an innovation-driven economy, where creating unique value is the focus. And what is the last stage? The wealth-driven economy, which is the decline stage. Does this decline spread from a society and lead to the decline of a civilization? Maslow, a psychologist, has given a needs hierarchy which states that once our physiological food, clothing, shelter needs are met, then we seek safety. Once those safety needs are met, we seek social needs. After our social needs are met, we have esteem needs, which are both aesthetic needs and cognitive needs. And once all these needs are fulfilled, we want to fulfill ourselves, what we are, discover what our potential is, and meet that potential. And that is bliss, that is happiness, that is joy. These are self-actualization needs. What has happened in society? We have seen the first and second industrial revolutions, which looked after the physiological needs of many. We saw the third industrial revolution. Now we are in the fourth industrial revolution. Should we not have reached the peak of seeking to fulfill our self-actualization needs? Human beings should have reached this. So are we rising in our need hierarchy as economic progress is rising from Industrial Revolution 1 to 4? The data given by Professors Halfon, Tweng, etc. does not suggest this. Education should prevent decline of society. This was the approach of our ancient wisdom to education. Many civilizations have progressed, prospered. However, many of them have gone into decline. What are the education ideas that sustain a civilization? Because all other stages are possible. But how to prevent that decline stage, that wealth-driven stage? Can these ideas, education ideas which help sustain a civilization, can we identify them, their spirit, and incorporate their spirit, integrate that spirit in the concepts of modern curriculum? Where have we lost our way in trying to do that? That is a question we need to ask now. We cannot afford to wait any longer. Is it because academics has a misconception about the role of the mind itself that all problems in the spirit of what the objectives of education wanted to achieve, it could not be realized? Because we do not understand the importance of the mind, educating the mind, that the spirit of the ethics was missed out in education itself, so it could never be applied in society? Can this spirit be awakened by a philosophy that can guide its research methodology? If research data is showing that social pain exists, what can possibly be the cause of these problems? Can a view based on philosophy guide progress? Is there any evidence of that? What can our research ethics course do to transform all of us together using the Sehna-Vavtu approach? For only if all of us transform our attitudes today can attitudes of society change tomorrow. In this session, we leave you with these thoughts to frame your ideas and your solutions and your questions. We will learn from your questions, your ideas, and your solutions, and look forward to seeing you in the next session. I thank you for the time and attention that you have given us.